Welcome to the Greater Culture Podcast, where we have conversations about how to elevate the quality of life through movement, nutrition, recovery, and mindset practices. And welcome to another episode of the Greater Culture Podcast with your host, Brad Marshall. Today, really excited to be joined by Bill Anthes. He is the founder of Between the Ears, which is a unique approach to connecting and exploring how the physiology and the way we move and the way we work out connects to psychology. So, Bill, thanks so much for taking some time to spend with us on the podcast today.
Brad, thanks for the invite, man. Appreciate it.
So, Bill, Between the Ears started a number of years ago. So, connecting the mind and the body. Tell us a little bit about your journey of what led you to eventually starting this company and now working with folks and how you do that.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up as an athlete. I played soccer at a very high level throughout college. Played in college and whatnot. Had a successful career. Graduated from college, went into the corporate world. Quickly realized that wasn't my route. Left that, enlisted into the Army in hopes of becoming a Green Beret. Successfully did that. Spent my entire enlistment as a Special Forces operator. So I was at 5th Special Forces Group. And during my time, both on the field and in special operations, like physicality and athletic performance was always just such a huge part of my life. And training and fitness was, the necessary thing to do to be better either between the lines or, in kit or whatever it might be. So that was always just a practice throughout my life. Looking back, I think what made me successful was not that I was naturally gifted or had specific skills or talents, but I just had this continued cultivation of like a mindset or an attitude, always trying to learn kind of, what I could do from a mental, from a psychological perspective, both during and out of competition that could help, whatever my goals were. And I think that really is what contributed to my successes. And, I got out of the Army to be with my family, and was looking for how do I maybe create something that shares past experiences without trying to recreate past experiences for people. There's a lot of companies and brands out there that do a lot of like military selection type experiences, and like that's just not me. I'm not like yelling and screaming at people. So wanted to really create opportunities for people who could learn about themselves in ways that there was both a physical challenge but also a psychological challenge as well. And just had this idea, and my wife was like, well, when are you gonna do it? Stop talking about it. And kind of did that and started Between the Ears. And yeah, like we were talking about before, I guess 2016 was like the first event. And just kind of been building and growing ever since.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that's unique, I think, is that the experiences you had as athlete and as someone in the military is whether you plan to or not, you start to understand that, hey, the way I think, the way I process information, the way I handle myself in certain moments dictates how well I can perform. Most folks kind of go through the school of hard knocks and just figure it out on their own. Was that a similar experience for you, or did you have folks who were sort of formally helping you develop and cultivate that sense of resiliency and ability to overcome challenges, or was it just a matter of you figured it out or you didn't perform?
I definitely didn't do it on my own. I don't, the extent to which people formally sat me down and said, okay, this is the lesson on this is probably less of that. I think, especially in special operations, people have these, I've heard people be like, well, you get all this training on this and that. And you're like, nah, not really. It's not like the movies. But I definitely, I definitely had people, my dad started coaching me early on, and he was always into like Eastern philosophies and ways of thinking. And he always told me from a young age, hey, it's 90% attitude, 10% aptitude. And like, remember that forever. And that was something that I really took to, and read the books on ninjas and samurais and all of that stuff as a little guy. And then for sure, other additional coaches. I had a very good relationship with a coach in college, and that was like doing it the right way. Having a standard. And then in the military, I enlisted and tried to go into special forces without any prior experience. And the odds are stacked against you pretty significantly. But I knew enough, I guess I was 25 going in. I knew enough as a rookie in other things, sport, to be like, hey, when you're a rookie, when you're the new guy, just shut up and listen and take it all in and observe. And I really tried to do that for my entire time. I never was like the guy who knew all the answers, but I would be the person who'd always listen to everyone and then see and observe, okay, what's sort of the nuance, what's the context of this lesson. um, so I definitely didn't have any success of my own doing. When I look at how many teachers and guides and mentors, either wittingly or unwittingly, I had, that I was very fortunate to have that.
Yeah, and what I've noticed is that when most folks are interested in building or developing something, they go find resources, like you said. Let me go find some books. Let me listen to some podcasts, or see if there's some folks in the industry who I might be intrigued by. And it sounds like that was kind of your path, along with mixing in some mentors along the way. So, at what stage did you determine that, you know what, this has been really helpful? I've navigated and figured out my own journey. I'm now interested to see if I can share or try and help others in that same regard. Because you mentioned that, a lot of folks, when they get out of the military, they begin different brands or different ways in which they can share some of those experiences. So what led you to want to start helping other people through some of maybe
Yeah.
the experiences that you had?
I think that desire to help was an extension of service. Um, I didn't leave the army because I was tired of doing the job or got hurt or even really wanted to. Like, a part of me really didn't want to. I left the army purely to be with my family. So my wife and two kids, like, never was with them the entire 5 years. Like, I'd see them like on occasional weekends and stuff, but I never actually lived with them. The first night I slept in our home, I think, was a year after we bought it. We're in New Jersey, and I was either in North Carolina or Tennessee or elsewhere. So I still had this craving to serve and to work with people and to be a person of hopefully positive influence for a greater kind of cause or mission. And health and wellness, physical and mental kind of development, so that people can have expansive experiences and live like more engaged in their life, seemed to be the sort of next calling or the next mission. And I was fortunate to have past experiences that I think lended itself to be like, hey, I've got some experiences and some tools and some skills and a desire for this, to try my hand at. I did the whole like make money thing before the army, right after college, and like that's not interesting to me. That's not the currency of life that I value most. So I never really entertained that. Um, so that's, I think, really kind of what was feeding that. My wife opened a CrossFit gym in 2008, and for the longest time worked for CrossFit. We both at one point were working for level one staff. So we had a gym. She had a gym, and I got out and started coaching formally. And was a student of CrossFit for many years and practitioner for sure. And while I was in the military, we had like a competitor team for a couple years, and I had done some coaching and some programming for them, and was good at that. And I would try to weave in these concepts or weave in these training principles that were not just do the workout. And to be honest with you, it was really resisted. And I was like, coming as an all-American athlete and as a special forces operator, when someone says I want to be a competitor, I'm going to take them at their word and say, like, right on, let's do it. my version of a competitor was different from other people's. And that was like such a powerful lesson for me. A tough one to learn, but a powerful one to learn of like, you got to make it about the other person. You got to really see what they're kind of doing. And while we did different, like kind of like pre between the ears type of stuff, um, I had a I had a strong desire to kind of have this blend of like physical movement and mindset stuff for people who were like, hey, I hear what you're saying. I want to get this, like kind of on the same page. Um, so that kind of like was the like the fertile grounds, perhaps, of CrossFit and of that type of thing. And less about like training people to go to at the time like to regionals, but more so people who are like, hey, I want to just have this apply to my life better, or being a better husband, wife, father, daughter, whatever it might be.
Yeah, I hear the thread there of this idea of active service, which led to a variety of the roles you had a chance to serve in, and really a desire to help other people navigate and figure things out in such a way that they can go achieve what they'd like to, whether it's performance related, whether it's lifestyle related. And the fertile grounds you mentioned of being able to coach in a gym is such a great entry point, because a lot of people
Yeah.
come to the gym because they're interested in change. They're interested in making
Yeah.
something be a little bit different. And even if they're not coming to the gym for specific mindset work, it's that
Yep.
opportunity to start to cultivate that. And is that kind of what your experience was? Like, as I'm coaching people at the level ones, as I'm coaching people in the gym, there's something more, something missing that I think I can help provide them that
Yeah.
might do more than just an hour of fitness.
Yeah, without a doubt. And what I learned was that some people are all about it, and it's not for everyone.
Mm.
And that took a couple of years of learning. And I also think it's important for me to acknowledge, like, I was also going through a pretty difficult transition from you know being really good at one job and one identity and one culture, to then like, okay, now you're supposed to be home and like, I don't know, normal, I guess. I don't, not to, I don't mean to use that word, but like, I just into like this kind of emptiness, I just didn't develop who I was outside of this former life, or this other job that I did. So not everybody not everybody was asking for what I wanted to deliver. And I learned again, a lot in those years, maybe what, 20, whatever the first few years of this was, while I was still coaching in CrossFit, that there was this, for example, there was this workout. It was maybe, let's just say, 100 wall balls into 100 kettlebell swings into 100 calorie row, something chipper style, that started off with a big set of wall balls. And it was a big class, exciting class. And I was like, all right, right on. And I was like, I've been coaching a lot, like coached a lot of people, had a lot of experiences. If One of the things that I love about CrossFit is that it preaches constantly varied. And that's not just the names of the movements, but that's how we approach things too. If we never vary our approach, we're never learning something, and we're constantly staying in the known. We're never stepping into the unknown. So I was kind of like giving a little pitch on this to the class and saying, for this workout, I don't care what your time is on the board, I don't care whatever. All I want you to do is start this workout with a set of wall balls that a number that you've never even entertained coming close to. And if it's 37 and you only do sets of 5, it's 37. If you're good at wall balls, like, do not put that thing down until you're done. Whatever it is. One giant set. Let's see how far we can go. Ready? Here we go. Boom. Put the music on. And then like I'm watching, I'm like, all right, right on, right on, right on. And then like at like 11, one of the balls drops. 12, boom, another. And just like down the line, that noise of a wall ball falling from 10 feet and
Mm-hmm.
slamming into the ground, and you're
Mm-hmm.
like, and I was like, what? I think one or two people probably, definitely pushed and went beyond. And I remember I was like really disheartened by that, because my passion, I think my skill sets were something that there was like there was just like, it wasn't a match, it wasn't a good fit for. And these are also paying members. And if they don't want to throw 79 wall balls, then don't throw 79 wall balls. That's fine. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
it's not my journey, it's theirs. But I just felt like I was underserving. I was underserving, or I wasn't really doing what I wanted. So yeah, I mean, learning in those kind of earlier years, like, okay, this stuff is kind of powerful. And the people who get it, get it. The people who do it are like, that was an experience. And it's like, yeah, what did you learn? You know, versus what did you validate you already know? I think that's a big thing with what we do between years.
Yeah, and one of the things that's I think so fascinating to me is, like you said, is people are walking into the gym, and if they choose CrossFit as their movement methodology, they're putting themselves in some tough positions day in and day out. Now, they might
Mm-hmm.
still have sort of a throttle on there of like, I'm not going to red line right to start a workout, but I'm going to do some tough things and probably learn about myself along the way. And I think that's why it lends into some of your experiences of you've done some tough things, realized some things along the way, and want to help people. What I'm interested in is you also have some formal education in how to
Mm-hmm.
help people through
Yeah.
some of the mental challenges, if you will, that they experience. Because I think we see a lot of folks in the space that have overcome some things, have some resiliency, and now they're a mindset coach or a mental performance person. And sometimes it doesn't always marry up to some of the formal education pieces. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
curious if you could speak on that of you've got some of those raw experiences that you've had. You
Mm-hmm.
also have been formally trained to help people with mindset. And is there sort of some overlap or a way that the two meld together in the way that you've found that works successful with people?
Yeah, there's definitely an overlap. The formal training, so I'm a licensed psychotherapist as well. I have my master's in social work. I'm a, licensed social worker. I do trauma informed therapy with a variety of clients, which is different from between their stuff. There's some clients who it's, they don't know anything about between the ears. It's just like, hey, I heard you're a therapist, you're a veteran, I want to talk to you, I've whatever. So there's therapy, there's clinical psychotherapy, and I do mostly like mostly trauma work. That said, there is certainly an overlap between like maybe the fitness coach or the health and wellness coach, because we talk about like this, like the body and the mind are connected. It's like it's the same thing. It's the system. We unfortunately kind of view it as, well, physically, and I got to turn my mind off, and that's kind of like a, how should I say it? That's a perhaps well-intended view, but not based in any biological truth. Um, there's both bottom up processes, so body to brain, and top down, brain to body. And that highway of sorts is our system. And it's our job as coaches, clinicians, guides, however we want to label it, to do whatever it is we can to work with the individual who's exploring this. And I think the important part when we're talking about like mindset or any kind of like mental performance is to understand there's like scope of practice as well. And when you start to really dive into trauma work and like really studying it and exploring it and getting, doing different trainings, different modalities, and actually working with people in a one-on-one clinical setting, you quickly realize how not volatile, but how intense that is. And that's in a therapeutic setting where the sort of expectation is to share, is to be open, is to be vulnerable. Anybody doing trauma work knows, like, hey, this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. And if you start off walking, no worries. There's like a protocol for that. But in a fitness setting, we don't have that. We don't have that like introduction. We don't have, yeah, there's rapport, but there's not the therapeutic alliance, really. It can seem like, oh, I love this person, they're great, I know a lot about them, but how people respond to traumatic experiences or just their own sort of narratives, we just have to we just, I think as coaches and as leaders in the fitness space, if we're talking about mindset and mental performance stuff, we have to know what we don't know as well. And that's, I think, where you don't have to be a therapist to do this stuff. But like prior to going back to graduate school, I was just consuming everything I could about different courses and trainings, and these are all people who are therapists. I'm like, geez, I'm not a therapist, and then I had an experience with someone who did an event, and they were like, this was amazing, this was powerful, but this was like, I kind of hate you right now. And they were having a very strong reaction. And she's like one of our really good friends, and she's like, if I just think you need to think about how deep and how quickly you're going with some of this stuff, because if somebody's not ready, that can be destabilizing, that can be dangerous. And that was like the one of the best pieces of feedback I've ever gotten. And I kind of put a pause on running events after that. And I was like, man, I need to like really take in what I was just told and respect that this is this person's experience. And if she's saying it to me because we're really close and we're really good friends, I'm fairly certain others haven't, because they don't have that. Maybe they don't have that safety, where I don't know them. They're just dropping in. And, oh, I heard this, and they're coming and doing an event. So kind of pause on the events, and then yeah, one thing led to another, and I was like, you know what? I think I want to continue to serve people in a legitimate mental health way, not just kind of like rah rah, you can do it, cheerleader kind of way. And that's when I ultimately made the decision to go back.
I think that's such a great perspective to have on how to help people along sort of the continuum, if you will. I mean, it's no different than if someone comes into your gym and is maybe deconditioned physically or hasn't been able to do certain movements, and asking them to go too far too soon can be a
Yeah.
danger. And so as a coach, you have to understand those boundaries and when to push up against them. And similarly, when it comes to any type of mental performance, mindset training, this operates on a spectrum of, disordered ways in which you can actually be diagnosed, all the way up to, hey, I'm working to perform as well as I can in the upcoming competition. There's everything in between. And when
Yeah.
folks start diving into mindset, it's like, okay, where are we at along this continuum? And I got to understand, hey, this might be something for somebody else to handle. And then this is something that I know I feel pretty confident in my skill set to deliver. So I think that's a really
Yeah.
unique perspective of figuring out what your lane is and then where you fit within that. And like you said, when you start to challenge people's beliefs or the way they think about themselves or the stories they're telling themselves in their head, all of a sudden it's like, whoa, we're going down some different paths there. And it's nice to have a guide who can help you along the way. And so along that vein, you hear the term mindset thrown around a lot, and mental
Hmm.
performance. How have you come to understand mindset when you are communicating that to people or you're working with people? How do you think about that term?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I really don't like the term. I,
Mm.
I don't like the word. I don't think it I don't think it I don't think it means anything. And by that I mean, like, one of the things I think that CrossFit did and deserves a lot of credit for is they, at the time, were unsatisfied or could not find a definition of fitness that seemed inclusive, that seemed broad, that seemed steeped in, like, reality. um, and so they're like, well, we're going to then define our own terms. And mindset, I feel like it's very, very similar. You hear mindset this, mindset that. We have a seminar, a weekend seminar, where this is actually one of our lectures. What is mindset? And our definition of mindset is it's a mode of self communication that drives actions as expressions of inner beliefs. And we kind of go in and we break that down all the way. And we kind of do a lot of psychoeducation as far as how this self communication processes work, what these, because there's the action element, and then there's this belief thing. And sometimes people with belief get a little weirded out with it, but it's not to say it's good or bad either. That's like the thing. Like, fitness mindset, it's inherent. It's neither inherently good nor bad. It's just what's sort of happening. So that kind of provides our framework that we dive into and that we work with people. Um, and you know, when we're looking at um, like a specific type of mindset, a lot of people have like a at all like we'll just say like whatever cost is necessary mindset. And people can look at that and say like I want to aspire to be like that, where nothing's ever good enough and I can always get better. And then if you were to kind of look at it from like a humanistic standpoint, be like, well, but that's sort of this belief that you're never good enough, or that scarcity is the overwhelming, predominant driver for what you do, and perhaps how you view yourself in the world. And like, what do you think about that? And it so mindset is very elusive. It's an elusive thing. It's often referred to, but I don't think really. I think it's overused and not understood. Um, but I guess that's why we're having this chat, and there's trying to dive into this stuff, because yeah, it's the mindset in which you sort of embody and embrace an action um, could be really good for performance and terrible for your sense of self. And I think within the veteran community, for sure, we see that mental health challenges. But I do a fair amount of work with high level athletes, and I can tell you, yeah, this whole the fitter strong body, strong mind. No, it sounds good. It makes for a good bumper sticker and T-shirt, but like the truth of the matter is that's it's not so simple. It's not as clean as that.
Yeah. I love that you've worked to find and develop a definition that you can operate
Mm.
off of, because I think language is important. So being able to
Yeah.
put an actual framework around mindset, because I mean, there's books. If you Google, mindset, you're going to find Carol Dweck and what she thinks about it, and you're going to find all these other folks out there. So it sounds like, from your perspective and your experience, there's sort of two avenues that you can explore. One is, if it being the mode of communication, like that story and those thoughts that we have that we can tap into on a more surface level. And then there's the beliefs, which sometimes are a little bit more challenging to pinpoint or peel the
Mm-hmm.
layers back to really fully
Mm-hmm.
understand how those underlying beliefs have now surfaced in the form of different thoughts and stories and things like that. So would you say
Mm-hmm.
that's sort of the way that you think about going about, if you want to call it adapting or adjusting your mindset, is like, hey, we can either tune into sort of the thoughts and the stories, or we can attack the beliefs, or maybe there's a combination of both there.
Everything. It's kind of everything, and it also has to do with the environment and the situation for which someone's performing or conducting an action. The performance word itself, because like you respect language too, so that's like awesome to hear. Like, the performance thing. When we think about a performance is kind of it's specific to an outcome. An athlete who seeks to perform is not necessarily doing so to feel good about who they are as a human being. They're doing so to win in competition, because that's like the deal. Like, that's what the whole thing, and that's just part of the, like, hey, that's just the rules of the game, and recognizing the reality of the context and the situation is important, but also like that environment, and a lot of people like high performance, but there's a bit of a lie there at times. And all of this bit about like mental toughness and this and that, like, I really just think, from what I've seen, and just my own personal experience and experience working with people, mental toughness, forget all the other crap, it's just about being honest. That's all it is. I haven't seen anybody. I've seen a lot of mentally tough people, and all of them are extremely honest with themselves, extremely honest with themselves, honest enough to know when it's like, nope, not gonna do the thing, and honest enough to know when it's like, yeah, I'm gonna do the thing. You're like, what? That's like the thing. You're like, yep, gonna do it. But it's honesty, and there's like, and performance and honesty can at times be at odds. Um, so really, I think using mindset as a way of like, how do we kind of get, almost like if like performance and honesty are two kind of separate things, like how do we get them closer to being in alignment with one another? um, and that's difficult, especially when you look at, the environment people are in, the culture, some of those beliefs. Where'd you learn that if you're not perfect, where'd you learn that perfection is the only option? Right? A lot of people have that struggle, perfectionism. So it goes deep. It's much deeper than, frankly, it's much deeper than just, hey, don't put the fucking wall ball down until you're done with 100. Like it's just deeper than that. You have no idea what people are coming into it with. And
Mm-hmm.
I think part of what's invigorating, I think, for myself is each person is so unique that I'm learning from each person, like without a doubt. And that's pretty, like, that's really cool. I think it's a shared, we're both teachers and students with each other. And I think any good relationship, any good coaching or therapeutic relationship, has that kind of back and forth.
Yeah, the way that you just outlined honesty as such a core element to mental toughness or being able to express what we're capable of, I haven't really thought of it in that way, but it makes perfect sense. When I think about helping people to perform their best, it really is, how do we figure out who you are at your best? And then how do we quiet the noise and everything that's trying to pull you out of that, so that you can truly, honestly, and authentically express whatever you've trained, whatever you've developed, whatever you've tried to cultivate over the years, to put on display and not worry about anything else. And I think that's a really cool perspective of, like, how can I have a more honest performance? How can I have a more honest me here now? And that's what I think people are searching for, is they want to feel like they're being authentic. They want to feel like they're living their best self, and all the noise and all the extracurriculars get in the way of that. And sometimes it's fighting, and it's like you're at odds with it. And I think you pointed to that, of the folks that you've seen, when you're at odds and fighting against yourself to try and do something or be something you're not, it's never going to go very well. Like, you're going to find a time where you're like, it's just not going to go the way that you'd like.
Yeah. And that might be not entirely visible to the outsiders, but it it's known to you inside. And I think that's really an important element of, it can look great, the outward picture of success and somebody who's a pillar of strength, and man, they check all the boxes, whomever it might be, and yet inside it's their internal reality is incongruent with their external perception or how others view them. And I think honesty is, really, if it can feel right and true to them, independent of what others kind of think or acclaim, um, then I think that's maybe a stronger, more sustainable fuel source,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense.
100%. I think we're seeing that even now in the CrossFit space, of more and more athletes who are,
Mm-hmm.
being challenged and pushed and put on pedestals, and it looks good and they're performing well and the social media looks good. And then they take a step back and everybody's wondering what's going on. I think exactly what you just alluded to there is, on the surface, it can look great, but underneath, it
Mm-hmm.
can sometimes be a lot of turmoil that you've got to sort through and figure out, especially if you've never gone face to face with really who you are. And when it comes to building honesty or being aware enough to do that, are there ways that you've come to help people navigate that process? Because, I think about when people ask about doing mindset work, or, how do I build a greater level of awareness? You start them off with almost simple things of like, hey, can you spend a couple of minutes a day in silence and just see what
Mm-hmm.
happens? Can you maybe meditate or engage in some mindfulness work or maybe some journaling? Because we got to start to explore the inner landscape. So when
Mm-hmm.
you think about doing work with folks and you have different seminars and one-on-one work, is there a way that you've come to know and help people through becoming more honest and aware of what's going on the inside?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, starting with like things that you can do in the everyday that don't require huge time commitments or technology or another person. So for me personally, one of the things that I don't even know why I started doing it. after every workout, I would just start journaling. And it was like, and I mean, this is like well over 10, 15 years maybe of doing this. And it was just like, it was like, wow, this feels good. This feels like when you feel present with something, like awareness has a certain feel to it. And sometimes it would just be like what the workout was, and other times it would be like a moment of a glimmer of hope, and sometimes it would be like, oh, didn't really like that thought. And it's kind of just that open inquiry, that open inquiry into what did I experience. And that, there's certain therapeutic modalities, one specific that refers to this when you're working with someone of like, well, what was it like to go through that? It's like a meta processing component of the relationship of the work. And I think exercise and working out provides such a, it serves it up to us daily. And, do a workout, whatever, wipe some sweat off if you're a sweater like me, break that journal open and just start writing a little bit. And I always tell people, like, start with writing what your actual workout was. 5 rounds of or 20-minute walk, and just kind of get the pen flowing. It's kind of like a warm up. And then, yeah, first sentence, you might be like, wow, that was really harder than I thought it was. I am sore than I thought. And then 2, 3 sentences later, it's like, oh my God, I'm hitting on something about my capacity as a human being, or my potential, or what it felt like to make a decision of, yeah, I'm going to do this. And there's just a like a boundless source of just like good stuff really within us that we can do. I think another thing is like incorporating body based tools and practices throughout the day. So breathing is great for that. Yes, meditation is great for that. I'm a big, big, big fan of saying, look, you've got these senses that you didn't work on. Like you were gifted these amazing senses. No different than if you like want to get a better squat, you're going to have to squat, use your legs, use, pay attention to your senses once a day, throughout the day. Just that's it. And start there, because it's all about gathering information. It's gathering signals from our external world, and then our internal world as well. And starting with those practices as where people can kind of start to tune into, again, this mode of self-communication is, I think, really the best way to begin. And, of course, you can get deeper and start, processing and having one-on-one calls and coaching and stuff like that. And, we have a program where once a week we program a workout that has a corresponding mindset, and there's journal prompts, and we teach the concept of what that mindset is, or what that concept is, and we explore it through movement. So those are good. Those are like additional practices and things that we do. But I think you're limited only to the extent you're creative and willing, and
Mhm.
that's what's really cool about it.
Yeah, I love the different opportunities to explore and find practices in what you just said there of take things you're already doing. So if you're already working out, add 5 minutes, 10 minutes during a cool down. And while you're stretching, maybe
Yeah,
put pen to paper, see what comes up from
yeah,
that particular workout. I mean, most likely your coach and your buddies are going to be asking you anyway, how'd it go? How do you feel? And so there's already something that's stirring or some introspection there. And then as you continue that journey, hey, tuning into the senses, tuning into the breath, it's really amazing. Like you said, the brain body connection of the data is there. It's more or less of, are we tuning into and aware of what the signals and the communication are, that I can then be
yeah,
skillful and do something with it rather than just being tossed around, kind of like a ship in a storm. So I think those practices are really helpful. And I'm curious because you mentioned, I believe it's the daily dose, right? Or the
yeah. The
practice, the
dose.
dose.
Yeah, yeah.
How did you come to explore that as an expression of, hey, let's combine the two? Because I think when people think of mindset work, they think of, I should be sitting on a cushion, I should be like
Yeah,
zenned out, I need to like be in a quiet space to do this. And you said,
yeah,
let's crank up, the internal world a little bit and see what we can find from some challenging workouts that then
Mm-hmm.
connect the opportunity to notice what's going on with the psychologist. How did that come about? And what have you seen as a result of doing those with folks who are interested in mindset work?
Yeah, so that model, I guess, of combining mindset concepts with exercise and with workouts, that definitely started in the military for me personally. How do I train myself? How do I, create a practice? Because I'll be like, I'm not saying this was the right answer. I wasn't going to meditate. I wasn't going to do um, Zen. Like while I was just, like love Zen and would read all about Zen, that didn't. I couldn't figure out how to like incorporate that into my thing, and I was just ignorant at the time. That's really all it came down to. But what I came up with was like, well, there is a concept, and like what would that be like physically, because yeah, there's books and all of this, but like I've never had an experience where it was involving the body, real world, real time, real stakes, and thought back to the book. It just, that wasn't really, for my own experience, that just wasn't what that was like. So being in the military and being, in the train up, and then, once I was, Green Beret, whatever, that was kind of like a fun, just creative process, I think, for me. And then I would just, yeah, deliver it to a couple other people. And then I don't know, maybe 2018, started a program called The Practice, which was training the inner self through awareness. Like, how do we have an active awareness process that's, again, like, what, yeah, we can be aware when we're sitting and meditating or doing whatever, but what about when we're heart rate's 180 beats a minute, it's 45 minutes into something, um, and it's not always like the most difficult thing either. I think that's something that I've come to really appreciate too. Like for some people, I programmed a workout for the dose recently, at 999 calories on a assault bike or echo bike or whatever. And most people will be like, I'm not, no, thank you. I'm not even going to try to do, I'm not even going to try to do 100. You want me to do almost 1,000? And the purpose and the intent of it was not to do it as fast as you can. It was actually to do it as, not as slow as you can, but it was an exercise in patience. And so if you're going 100, if you're going to go 999 as quick as you can, yeah, you're going to have to be patient to an extent, but that's going to be secondary to your desire of being impatient or not having the just ability to be with something that's taking a long time, like just being present over time. And that's really more difficult for some people than just be like, all right, let me just blast through this and get this thing done with, and it's cool. Like next week, if we were to do it, be like, hey, do it as fast as you can and see the difference, right? Be curious, be open. Um, but yeah, so started this program a few years ago, and some of the results that people were experiencing were way, like fitness was the last thing that they were saying was improved, like significant mental challenges, like dangerous to self mental challenges. And again, this was not intentional, and I'm not, absolutely not saying that this will quell suicidal ideation. No, it's not, like it is not that. But people tuned into who they were or who they are. And that's what it was. Being better in their relationship, being better to themselves, better at work. Things that I just frankly, like, really caught me by surprise. And I was not prepared for. I thought maybe they'd find the gym a little bit more, okay, and outside a little bit too. But people just, really got it, and it was deep. Um, but it wasn't forced in terms of like, okay, now you're going to tell me all the worst things or the best things. It was like, hey, here's this invitation for you to go explore, and you're going to be the only one to do it. I'm not going to know. But if they're honest, they really just, again, tap into some gold. And that formula kind of worked. And then it's kind of like my job, sort of, to come up with this stuff and create this stuff, I guess, like a musician has their brand and genre and kind of the way in which they find the world interesting and try to share their vision with others. That's, I guess, kind of how I view like now currently some of my job and my wife's job with Between the Ears and with the Dose.
Mm. One of the things that I love is the way you phrase that it's an invitation to
Yeah.
explore. And so many times when you ask somebody, what were you thinking during that workout? Hey, what were you thinking when decided or flew off the handle because somebody cut you off in traffic or a boss sent you an email that really made you upset? And they're like, I don't know. It's because
Yeah.
we're not taking time to explore what comes up and what
Mm-hmm.
we're experiencing and what's going on. And so thinking of it as that an invitation to explore and just tune in and see, how do I think about this? What am I feeling? Oh, that's interesting. I'm curious. I'm allowing it to be, and then I can do something with it after the
Mm-hmm.
fact. So I think it's such a cool perspective, especially for people who already love working out and movement.
Mm-hmm.
It's very easy to tune into the body and be like, oh, here's the sensations I'm experiencing and here's what I'm thinking
Mm-hmm.
about, versus sitting still on a chair or a cushion and trying to figure out what's going on in your head. So it's a unique approach that's meditative in nature, of just what comes
Mm-hmm.
to mind. That's great. Notice it.
Yeah.
And it's guided, which is even better, because I think sometimes as coaches, you want to explore some of these concepts like we've talked about. Hey, I'm trying to build confidence, or I want to build your belief, or I want to teach you that you can do hard things, but we may not have the questions or the way to go about that. So I'm curious from your perspective, for the coaches out there who are working in front of a group of people, and yeah, they're coming to you for that hour of fitness, but we also know we can sprinkle in some of these mindset concepts because it's really powerful and really helpful. Are there any practices or things that you think would be helpful for a coach to either think about or consider, or maybe questions that they can use after a workout or even during a class, just to maybe sprinkle in some of those mindset shifts or ways to help people that maybe they don't even realize?
Yeah. I the way I would approach this, and the kind of way in which we found some really amazing just results with folks, is to de-emphasize our role in it, and is to, again, that invitation to extending. So agency is one of the most important things for frankly, for like for mental health, for sure, as well as physical, but absolutely for one's sense of self. Agency, the ability to choose among choices, is kind of what we say agency is. A, a group of, let's just say, 15 people come to class to do the group workout. There's agency. They chose to go to the class. But if it's, let's just say, Fran, and the person comes in and they're wiped out, something medical happened to the family, to a loved one, their dog just died, their boss just ripped them apart, they got into a car accident, they're just simply tired. Like, there's any number of states and experiences in which somebody might come into that class. But then if we're saying like, hey, okay, now you're going to blast yourself with intensity, are they choosing to do that? Are they choosing to do that, or are they just like doing it because everyone else is doing it, or doing it because that's what the workout is? And look, Wednesdays is when Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I go to the gym. 5 o'clock is the class I go to. I don't even care what the workout is. I'm going to do it. Maybe. And so you kind of start to see where people may sacrifice what they need, truly what they need, or the opportunity to learn what they need, to learn the language of themselves, if their agency is really not there. And again, the honesty is like, sometimes it's like, yeah, hey, you sat in traffic. I get it. That's annoying. But like, do the workout. So like, it, there's a fine line between enabling and empowering someone. And I think the more as coaches we can get ahead of that, instead of looking at it proactively, um, getting ahead of, or reactively, proactively getting ahead of it and being like, look, here's the workout. And this might not work for all settings. I understand that. But like, let's zoom back a bit. Here's your fitness. Here's your 3 days a week. whatever it is you might be doing, I want you to, one day of the week, choose how you're going to do the workout, or even what the workout is you're going to do, purely because you want to. Or at least choose one of the workouts and have like a clear intention for doing the workout other than somebody programmed it, because you didn't program it. And I think just like starting there, and that might, for some people, there's some people still, some people at our gym who are like, oh, I was like, okay, what are we thinking? They're like, just tell me what to do. I'm like, no. And I have rapport with them now. I can be like, like, get out. You know that's not what we do. You're like leave. You know what I mean? And it was kind of a joke, but like, we feel strongly about that. Of course, we also know that, hey, sometimes it's like, hey, coach, just like, and I find that too. Sometimes, we program all these workouts and those things. Like, I don't know, let's just do it. What do you want to do? Of course, there's a time and a place for this. But I think proactively working on people's mindset, people's honesty, people's, internal dialogue, that mode of self-communication, starting with agency, because it's a thought, because it's a process, it's a choice, um, is a great place to start. Versus maybe like, well, when you were feeling like you could have put the ball down, in the wall ball example for me, like, you should have just not dropped it. It's like, okay, thanks. Like, world's greatest coach, hey, just that would be like, a soccer coach, I play soccer, be like, hey, just score more goals than the other team. You're like, done, job is, there we go. So I think starting with agency really is a refreshing and a new thing for some folks, but I think it has a lot of upside.
Mm-hmm. I think this is a great culmination of all the topics that we highlighted of how do we help people to be more honest with themselves, tune into what's going on in the environment. As a coach, it comes back to you being curious and open, and rather than just saying or telling somebody, hey, talk to me a little bit. What was the strategy like there? What were you thinking? How did you process or go about that? And letting them start to unravel or reveal what's going on in their own internal world. And then that's where maybe you layer some things in, or you get to build a better relationship. But I was talking to another coach recently, and they talked about that exact concept of like meeting people where they're at, and trying not to assume that everybody in the room wants to put the pedal down on 21-15-9, thrusters and pull-ups, and being okay with that as a coach. Because like you said, I think we've all been in that situation of like, what are you doing? Why are you not doing it the way that like we programmed it? Or why are you not lying on the floor? And it's like, whoa. Hey, we're trying to help people along their journey, and that can look a lot of different ways for a lot of different folks. And it sounds like you've had a really cool opportunity to impact people's lives with Between the Ears by exploring, the physiology of psychology. And so, Bill, I'm for folks out there who are interested to learn more about you and what you've got going with Between the Ears, and maybe even put in that dose once a week for their own exploration. How can people get in touch and reach out to you?
Yeah, so we have a website, betweentheears.com, BTWN, theears.com. I'm on Instagram at Bill Anthes. My wife's at Cariana Anthes. Our Instagram handle is at Between the Ears, same spelling, BTWN the Ears. That's probably the best way to get a kind of overview of our menu, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for chatting mindset. Always one of my favorite topics to dive into. Appreciate all the insights that you brought and ways that people can walk away and maybe start exploring what's going on in that internal world so that they can have a healthier, happier, more fulfilled life.
Brad, I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks for inviting me, and it's great to see and hear the work that you're doing with folks. It's good stuff.
Thanks.